being able to contribute and build is by far more interesting than joining something that's already been established. One of the exciting things about the advanced pharmaceutical manufacturing industry, this cluster that's being groomed and grown here in this region, is that it's just starting. The excitement of the new ideas and the ways in which to do business is happening every day here in the Richmond-Petersburg region.
During the pandemic, members of our coalition in the greater Richmond and Petersburg market recognized that there was a critical shortage of essential medicines in the U.S. and the need to reshore the making of those medicines. And that is a key factor in what we are working on here in our market.
It's an exciting time in this region because we have all of these companies that are touching different parts of the pharmaceutical ecosystem. And then we've created a coalition that's creating a workforce and attracting other companies to the region. So we're really working together to build up the pharmaceutical sector in this part of the state.
It's been an honor and a privilege to be able to have this coalition of groups, whether they're economic development groups, service organizations, community colleges, and other universities, as well as other public and private companies coming together through a common cause to try to work in solving this critical national public health security issue.
Those collaborations have been able to create what we call the Alliance for Building Better Medicine.
There's a great desire to actually build this industry here in Virginia.
Virginia is rich for business, and this is an incredible opportunity to expand on an industry like pharmaceuticals. What's happening in Petersburg is one of the most exciting things I think happening in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Over $500 million in federal grants have been applied to that area, close to $1 billion when you factor in private investment, public investment, federal and state investment.
You want to be part of a remarkable team and be part of a whole change of a culture of a region. This is the place to be.
It takes a village. There are so many people involved, and the reshoring of activities, it cuts across sectors and organizations and components of our economy that you wouldn't even think of.
I want to bring the collaboration at the community, the grassroots level. And I think that we have to operate at both levels and even in between to bring that and build that awareness of the opportunities for this region.
The Alliance has really shown me what is possible when education, training, economic and workforce development, localities and business and industry with vision come together.
The way that we prepare a workforce pipeline for biotechnology and pharmaceutical manufacturing in the region is we offer training programs that are sector-led. And by sector-led, that means that we've met with employers and we continue to meet with employers, and they tell us the competencies they need in their employees. And then we build academic programs that develop those competencies for the future workforce.
It connects academic institutions with the companies that put themselves here physically, and this is the cluster.
We have the structure and facilities in place that allow our researchers to develop manufacturing insights that allow us to breathe new life into new and existing manufacturing processes.
All of the work that we're doing here in Central Virginia, it's having an impact on the country as a whole and also internationally with regards to other areas of the world.
Any company that's looking to expand in the life sciences industry would want to consider Virginia as their home. I think that Virginia has a unique opportunity to make a global impact in the life sciences region, and the collaborative suite of companies that are here are already doing that work, and more that join us, we can only make that impact a little bit greater.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us for the Alliance for Building Better Medicine Supply Chain Webinar Information Series. The series will explore and inform the audience about the growing advanced pharmaceutical manufacturing and biotech ecosystem developing in the Richmond, Petersburg, Virginia region. My name is Vanessa Womack, and I am the Inclusive Community Development Consultant for the Alliance. This webinar will discuss the critical role of building and sustaining a supply chain to support the growing needs of the advanced manufacturing and biotech entrepreneurial ecosystems. Our guest today is Jim Pannucci, PhD, Vice President of Entrepreneurship at Activation Capital. Welcome, Jim.
Hi, Vanessa. Thank you.
Let's get started.
Sure.
Jim, could you share with us a little bit about your background and your role at Activation Capital. And what does that PhD stand for?
Sure. So my PhD is in microbiology. That's primarily the study of viruses and bacteria. And I've done a lot of research on infectious diseases, vaccine development, drug development, and even had an opportunity to do some cancer research and new drug discovery.
Okay. And your role here at Activation Capital as Vice President?
Sure. I've got two main roles. One is to help startup companies in the pharma, biotech, med device space launch and thrive and survive through programming and exposure to mentors and attraction of capital investors. And then the other big piece is on ecosystem development. That's the bigger picture economy on how we're trying to grow, a pharma cluster in the Richmond-Petersburg area and, a nice portfolio of startup biotech companies. And we help with the strategy and proposal writing and grant winning and execution of all that work. So it makes good economic sense and good business model sense for the region.
And that's a lot, and thank you so much for the work you're doing. Why do you think this is so important in working with the prime manufacturers in executing the mission to reshore production of affordable medicines?
Sure. So I see it like this. At the core of the pharma cluster, there's a manufacturing activity, right? We're making new medicines. But in order to get that done, it's really a system of companies that it needs to succeed, right? It's not just the manufacturer of like the bulk amounts of white powder, and it's also another activity to take that white powder, press it into pills or injections, put it in a container like you would pick up at the pharmacy, right? Upstream of that, there is really where the supply chain begins. There could be research supply chain. Who's developing the new chemical processes that the manufacturing activity will use? Who's supplying key starting materials, the chemical ingredients that make up the drugs that once it's assembled? Who is supplying the logistics, either upstream or even after manufacturing, transporting materials in, transporting materials out. There's an important storage component, right? When new medicines are made, they often have to be held in controlled temperature. That's it's like a giant warehouse, right? And that's an important piece. There's other logistical aspects, trucking in and out. In addition to storage, you may have cardboard boxes may be important. Plastic containers may be important. There could be testing of drugs to make sure that they're up to quality specifications. That could be another area, a business that's important to the region. So if you add up all the different companies that are involved in this system of companies, there could be dozens, there could be hundreds, right? And and the importance of having them close, right, is it's efficient, a network develops, relationships develop, and it makes the whole system of companies that make up the pharma cluster much more successful when you have, a complete supply chain.
So with all that in mind and growing this ecosystem in this region, what is the impact that what we're developing here, this ecosystem, nationally and internationally, particularly as it applies to supply chain, and even if you want to throw in some thoughts about national security, sure, why we're doing this?
Sure. Well, essentially, the Richmond-Petersburg pharma cluster is designed to make three types of medicines, right? All loosely categorized as generics. There's medicines that are in short supply. There are medicines that are essential, right? And essential medicines are ones that, we kind of take for granted: blood pressure, cholesterol, insulin, that are millions of people take, but are difficult to sometimes supply. And then there's medicines for rare diseases, which are often hard to get and expensive to buy because the population of recipients is so low. Right, so between those three types of medicines, it could keep our pharma activity very busy, and if having domestic sources of those, like sources in the United States, better ensures quality, better ensures availability, and better assure security of those medicines, and that they're safe and reliable and not counterfeit and are available when needed. Altogether, that plays a significant part in ensuring a national health security in that regard, that medicines can be made at home and available to patients at a reasonable price when needed. I think that's a very big deal, and the work that we're doing here in the region could be transformative for the way our nation approaches health.
How do minorities or underrepresented communities or businesses can be part of this supply chain?
Vanessa, there is so much to be done, and there is so much opportunity. Right now, if you look at the company portfolio of the Richmond-Petersburg area, as it relates to advanced pharmaceuticals, it'll be a nice collection of companies. But when you think about the entire system of companies that we're trying to build, many more will eventually arrive here, whether they're started here or they move here. And there's a lot of opportunity around that to be a part of that business enterprise. I mean, you could think of it as we have we started maybe with a village of companies, and now we have a town of companies, but we're on course to build a city of companies all around this capability. And I think for anybody who's interested in being a part of this very inclusive opportunity, just stay close to it, right? Come to events, listen to webinars like this, and follow up afterwards, and try to meet some of the companies that are there, but stay close to groups that are involved in economic development and technical development like ours. And don't be afraid to ask, don't be afraid to speak up, and we'll get to it in a bit about some of our entrepreneurship activities. But there's a great opportunity now in Richmond-Petersburg region to start a company that could be a part of this supply chain.
Can you share some thoughts about how to stay informed about opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, there's federal opportunities for all sorts of businesses small businesses, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses that, from my experience, the federal government is very interested in making sure happens. I know the state of Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia is very excited about opportunities for everybody. And I know from my own personal business here at Activation Capital, we are treating the growing of businesses in the region as a business itself. So I'm trying to implement some very measurable pipeline metrics to make sure we have the flow of companies that the region needs, and then at the startup level that will represent the region's future, right? So we are very interested in meeting entrepreneurs in the pharmaceutical, biotechnology, bioscience, medical device, health space, and we want to understand what your ideas are and what companies' technologies are. And even if you're an experienced entrepreneur and have some business talent, we'd love the opportunity to try to match those folks with technical founders that are academics that may not have the business savvy in order to make a new company work. And we're very interested in making those matches and get new companies, new opportunities started.
Tell us about starting the journey with Frontier BioHealth, and answer some questions. And you've seen my questions,
sure.
I'm just going to throw them out there, and you could just run with it.
Okay.
Why, as part of the Activation Capital and Biotech Center mission, how does the Frontier BioHealth fits into that? How are you strengthening the biotech research pipeline, which you just mentioned? And follow up with funding, because most people want to know, you got any money?
Sure. So Activation Capital and has had a long history here in the tech park. Our mission has changed to meet the needs over the years. Our mission now is very focused on ecosystem development, that strategy around how do we grow out the pharma activity, and entrepreneurship, which is how do we promote the growth and sustainment of new startup companies in this space. We are taking a very intentional approach around the pipeline of that type of company support and management. So this year we started and just finished recently the Frontier BioHealth Accelerator. It was 10 companies that were sort of educated and mentored and developed over 4 months and we think achieved in that time what they would have done in 4 years on their own, right? So those companies graduated the program ready to talk to investors about a seed stage investment, which in the biotech pharma market could be a $5 to $8 million chunk of money, right? It's very exciting. But we want to make sure that we can do that again next year. So we're working upstream of that to make sure we have the companies, to feed into the Frontier Biohealth program every year, right? And part of our intentionality is making sure that that accelerator has in front of it a pre-accelerator, right, which has many more companies in it that are learning the very beginnings of how to run this business and what their journey is going to look like. And then in front of that, we've got a matchmaking activity to try to get new companies started, right? So we have from, educating entrepreneurs and founders, matching them with technologies, and we hope to keep in touch with those companies all the way until they're either exited successfully or get a big $20 million investment and, or can run on their own at that point. And also in parallel to that, we understand that entrepreneurs have different funding hurdles along the way, right? The federal government's SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research Program, is fantastic. It provides much needed support in the early stage of companies. Usually that's what gets them to enough data to get a seed stage investment, right? But earlier than that, companies often rely on friends and family, and that's irregular, inconsistent money to come by. So we're thinking about how do we plug those funding gaps, connect our family of companies to programs that the Commonwealth of Virginia has, at VIPC or other organizations. And even if we can grow, a Richmond Petersburg angel network, and these are, individuals that have made investments before, perhaps not in biotech, but we're hoping that they understand the importance of this mission and the importance of having companies in your area working on life-changing therapeutics and know that that's a worthy investment. So we're trying to coordinate those activities so our network of companies in the Richmond Petersburg area, from the moment they form to the moment they have a successful exit, ending point, that we have programming and funding opportunities to sort of work and meet those founders and those entrepreneurs along the way.
Okay. So as folks are listening to you when we do this live and you're ready for Q&A, how would they get in touch with you to find out more information?
Go to the Activation Capital website. I'm pretty easy to find there. Go under the About Us, find me under staff. You can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me through you. And it's very much a part of our business to make ourselves available. And that's not just in those type of communications, but for 2025, Activation Capital will be hosting a series of events, all public, and they're networking events, showcase events, opportunities, for companies in the region to talk about the good things they do and then meet people who can either work with them, work for them, or become new companies themselves.
As we are wrapping up here, are there any words of wisdom, any parting information that you want to share with those who will be listening to you? Because I know there are probably some inventors or innovative founders who are probably working out of their garage or in their kitchen, tables. Like, what do you have to say to them to encourage them?
I would tell them the same thing that we talk about here at Activation Capital as a team, right? Set goals, put numbers to them, measure your progress, and be very intentional about your plan.
This concludes the interview. We will proceed to Q&A.
This series will, as you can see, talks about supply chain and entrepreneurship. And we're so happy that Jim is with us live, and he is going to be ready and willing to answer any questions you may have and provide any updates on the Frontier Biohealth or any other programs that are going on. So Jim, thanks so much for being with us. We have a question for you. We have one in the chat already.
Great. you want me to read it?
I'll read it, and you
Okay.
just be ready. What are
Sure.
some of the advantages you see starting a company in a growing biotech ecosystem like Richmond versus one of the more established regions like Boston? Oh boy, I can't wait to hear this.
Well, I think I think one of the key advantages, Vanessa, now is that the region is very primed to grow, meaning, and it's also very primed to collaborate. So in a more mature market, a new startup company may have a hard time getting attention from universities, from health systems, from funders, from other collaborators, and being able to do collaborative science is a key to success. And I think in a developing region where everybody's hungry to make it succeed, we're quite eager and enthusiastic to welcome new members of the community and help them succeed along with us.
Okay, thank you so much. The next question, and as I'm asking this question for those who are on, please, you can write your question in the chat, or you can unmute yourself if you want to ask verbally. The question is, are there any certifications that would be useful for companies to have in order to be of service? And I'm just reading the question. You might want to read into it how you may want to answer it.
Sure. I would say the services that startup companies most often need are legal, budget accounting and finance, sometimes marketing, sometimes general consulting. I think the regional sooner or later attract some contract research services. Often new founders in the life sciences, biotech, pharma space. They work a lot like scientific architects. Where they plan, but they find it easier to outsource lab experiments to specific experts. And there's a nation and sort of international sources for that, but it's always nice to have them close to home sometimes. So I think that's another thing that'll emerge in Richmond sooner or later. Be an important part of our community. But I think just to be ready to support the startup companies and the established companies in a way that fills in the gaps of what small businesses often have a hard time operating themselves, I think would be an important way to address that question.
And it's interesting that you say that, because you do indicate that in the video, that if there are individuals or companies that have that entrepreneur or business savvy, but not quite sure how they fit in, you have just at least explained a little bit better how that can work.
Sure.
The next question, what does it take to successfully start a business? Oh, she's got a few questions here. Understanding, you said, to set goals, measure progress, and assess. Are there personality or technology traits that make the difference between being a successful entrepreneur versus not?
Sure. Well, certainly you need to be motivated and very, very dedicated to your cause. I've met a lot of startup founders over the years, and they all are very passionate about what they're doing. But I would say in tandem with that, you need to be what the field refers to as investor ready, and that means that you've got a strong business case that justifies investment. You've summarized the problem you're trying to address. You have a technology or an approach that specifically addresses that product, and you've got a sense of how the technology will be commercialized, and be meaningful to investors, right? Which usually means return on investment, or be meaningful to grant sponsors, which means that it solves a particular problem. And investor ready also means that you are solving someone else's problem. They're not there to solve your problem, which is that you need money. That because you need it is not a reason to get it. You've got to be, solving the problems in a commercializable way.
is a key part of what it takes to be a founder.
Okay. With your Frontier BioHealth program and the one that leads up to it, I guess it's like a pre-start, so just my interpretation. What kind of products are these founders or entrepreneurs pursuing? Can you elaborate a little bit about that and how it fits into the whole bio science?
Sure. So we are interested in technologies that are in some way related to life sciences and, and like deep research around developing that product. So usually these are things that emerge out of universities and academic labs, but they do arrive from other sources, but they are novel drug candidates, novel vaccine candidates, maybe protein and cell therapy products. They could be diagnostics. How do you detect and identify diseases in a more efficient and more accurate way? And they could be medical devices, that either support patient care or enable the delivery of drugs or monitoring of patient experience. All of that loosely under life sciences and new medical product development is where our interest lies for Frontier.
Okay. I'm going to be prompted to ask another question, but I do want to encourage anyone else who's on to please feel free to ask any question you like. Knowing that we in this region, our goal as we are building this APM and biotech ecosystem is to bring back the manufacture of affordable medicines here in the United States. Can you elaborate on, because some people don't understand that we're still not doing a lot of that, but we are in this region making a specific goal to do that. Can you elaborate? And how does that fit into national security?
Sure. So there's hundreds of drugs, pharmaceuticals that people take every day that are essential to maintain health across the nation. A lot of those drugs, have emerged in decades ago, some is, 1950s, 60s, 70s, and, later, and their manufacturing and production processes are antiquated. But because they are older medicines with very low profit margins, it becomes expensive to update how they're made to make them, more efficiently. So usually what happens is they get outsourced to other countries where labor and other costs are less, and that way they can be made in an affordable manner. However, that does result in certain risks. Some of it is supply, some of it is quality, and some of it is the geopolitics of health products gets rolled into that. So it's in the interest of our nation to have these drugs made domestically. And what our region here has developed and is becoming very good at is modernizing the manufacturing process from these drugs so they can be made at a reasonable price locally or in this country. So, and that way, we've not only addressed health security, but have worked on supply chain and quality at the same time.
Okay. For those of you who are paying attention to what I'm putting in the chat, I've put the website for the Activation Capital Bio Start the Journey that Jim manages. And I've also put in some websites of our member organizations in the advanced pharmaceutical manufacturing system. And I specifically put the website that links to careers. So those of you who are on here can explore those and see what kinds of career opportunities and what kinds of experience that those call for. All right. Anything that you'd like to share in the chat, Jim? People know how to reach out to you. Please feel free to do so.
Sure.
I don't want to make this my last question because I'm still encouraging others to ask questions. How would you describe those opportunities in bioscience or life sciences? What would you suggest that people who know others who might be interested, what is the pathway, maybe the educational pathway or experimental a pathway to get into that industry?
Sure. I think it starts with a good idea, and usually that requires it to be patent protected. Often the university handles that if it's emerging out of an academic center. But there's other ways for individuals to patent their technology if not associated with another organization. And then once you have that, you want to do some experiments to establish a reliable proof of concept, and from there, you head down the path of getting some government grants perhaps, and that's part of the pathway to getting investment at some point down the road. And where activation capital is important is we help guide that process by providing some educational programming to founders, some operational support if they need it, or where they need it. If there's some business functions that we can help that founder work through, that's what we're here for. And ultimately, we want to be able to provide some advising, some mentoring, from some regional experts. And then we're putting together an investor network that'll hopefully help grow and sustain the companies in our region. The most important step, though, is if anybody has an idea for a startup company in the life sciences or biohealth space, is to reach out to Activation Capital and let's talk about what your intentions are.
All right, that all sounds wonderful, and thank you for sharing that. It's always a good reminder to, because there are some people who might be on that path or may know some others who will be, or they may want to pivot in their career role. So I have asked you to stay tuned. There's a pop-up survey if you can complete that. And while that is showing on your screen, there's another question. And this is from Cal. Hi, is there a minimum square foot cold storage facility to be a part of the supply chain? Can you answer that for us, Jim?
I know that cold storage is very important for pharmaceutical products, particularly those that are subject to degradation at room temperature. I well beyond my expertise to know if there's a square foot minimum or not, but it's certainly a big part of making sure the region succeeds. Well, close by storage is super important for this type of activity.
And that question has come up in one or two of our other supply chain meetings offline. And Cal, I will try to get some more information about that to you. So thank you for that question. While we are finishing up the poll, I appreciate you all completing that. I will also put in the chat the next webinar. This is number 5 of 7. Okay, next webinar is February 4th, next Tuesday, and it's on cybersecurity. So get ready for cybersecurity, and I have put in the chat the actual link to that. If you want to put it on your calendar for next Tuesday at 1 p.m. and also look for any social media announcements for the cybersecurity webinar. And then our last one will convene 2 weeks after that on February 18th. And that will conclude our webinar series with Dr. Frank Gupton, who is the founder of VCU Medicine for All and co-founder of, please let me get this right, Flow. So I just want to make sure that you all stay abreast and stay tuned and be ready, because we are on the cusp of something great here in this region. So with that, any other parting words from you, Jim, or anyone else? If you have a lingering question, now's the time before we wrap up.
This was a lot of fun. Thanks, Vanessa. I enjoyed.
Thank you, and I'm so glad you were here to support our efforts. And this concludes our webinar for today. I appreciate you all being on here, and look for the next webinar to convene next Tuesday on cybersecurity.